Hello, everybody. This is Jacob Sapochnik with the Enchanting Lawyer podcast. This is a show where we interview aspiring entrepreneurs and professionals from all over the world that share their successes and ideas with us and help us become better at what we do. And before we get into our the guests of our show today, I just wanted to thank our listeners for all the support emails and that we get. I've been getting a lot of good feedback about the show and suggestions for new guests, so I thank you for that. And if you do listen to the show, make sure that you leave us a review on iTunes. It really helps us a lot. And we love to hear from you. So any suggestions, email me, Jacob at enchantinglawyer.com. Today, we have a very special guest, Dananjaya Hettiarachchi. He's from Sri Lanka. He's the world champion of public speaking, and we are very excited to have him here on the show. His business is as human resources development specialist. He works as a corporate trainer and a speaker, working with both private and public sector organizations in South Asia. He travels often to the U.S. and spreads the public speaking art around the world. Dananjaya, I am very excited to have you here on the show. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me on board, Jacob. It's an absolute pleasure to be on board.
And you were right now in Colombo, right?
Yes, I am right now in Colombo. Yes.
Excellent. I'm always excited when we have guests from different parts of the world. This is very exciting. And I gave a little brief intro about you, but why don't you tell us a bit about you and what got you into public speaking? Again, I know you have a long life story, but kind of give us a little a brief nutshell, and we'd love to hear from you.
Okay. So I got into public speaking almost by accident because when I was about 18, 19 years old, I was in a period of my life where I was just trying to figure out what I want to do with my life, and I had gone down many wrong avenues, and my father was getting actually worried about where I was heading, and one of my father's friends actually had access to a Toastmasters club. Now, Toastmasters is an international organization that's committed to help people develop their speaking and leadership skills. We have about 300,000 members from around the world, and we're spread across the world. So my dad actually introduced me to this club through his friend, and on the first day I went into that club, and two things happened to me. Number one, I started to associate people that I had never had access to before. I met some really amazing people in this club. And number two, the learning environment was so positive, and the reinforcement that you got was so encouraging that I wanted to learn the art of public speaking. So I kept going back to the club meetings, and that's when I really started to develop public speaking. And that just continued throughout the rest of my life.
And so how many years have you been already a member of Toastmasters?
Well, I've now been 10 years now. I've been in Toastmasters for about 10 years, yeah.
Wow. And, I think that for us, many of my listeners are attorneys and other professionals. And public speaking is really something that we all have to do. It's, whether we want to reach out to clients or we want to educate about what we do. But there's also this fear where we kind of try to push that and say, well, maybe next time. And I'm curious to know, you've been doing this for 10 years, kind of on a kind of almost professional level. How do you think this has really enhanced your career and your life?
Well, what public speaking has done to me is that it's increased my confidence. Now, this confidence has allowed me to do so many things. Today, as a trainer and as a speaker, and even as an interpersonal communicator, my level of confidence has increased tremendously. So even if I'm talking to a person one-on-one, or it could even be a situation where I'm talking to a group of people, to 5,000 people, the process of learning the art and improving your public speaking skills has developed my confidence to such a level that every time I engage in my job, then almost every part of my life which requires relationship building has improved because of this.
Right. And, previously when we talked before, you mentioned that, in a way, it saved your life. What did you mean by that?
Yep. Well, in my thank you speech after winning the World Championship of Public Speaking, I said, public speaking saved my life, because in my youth I was very misdirected and misguided, and I was definitely going down a path. I was never academically strong, so I was not looking. I didn't have a chance to get into a great university, and my options were so limited because the values and the mindset I had when I was in my youth was very different to what I had now. So by associating people, now when I walked into my Toastmasters club, I was the youngest person in that club, and easily everybody was twice my age. And what happened was, just for twice a month, I got to associate some amazing people. And just by associating them, I started to develop my thinking, how I approach problems, how I approach life in general, in addition to developing my Toastmasters and public speaking skills.
Right.
So for me, it was like an incubator for success. And that's why I always say Toastmasters saved my life.
Right, and we're going to link your amazing speech, and we'll get to it later on in the show our show notes, because it was a remarkable speech. But before we get into the other part of the interview, I'm curious to know. I always like to ask my guests about an inspirational quote or any quote that you like, that it means something to you, that you would like to share with my listeners. I'll be curious to know what it is, if you have one.
Yeah. Well, a quote that I really love is, when you want to give up, remember why you started. And that's a quote that has helped me through a lot of really bad patches in my speaking career, where I had wanted to give up trying to win the World Championship of Public Speaking. Now, to win the World Championship of Public Speaking, it's just not one speech. The assessment starts 1 year in advance. And every year, 33,000 people from around the world compete for this. So it's a 1 year long process. You speak in 7 rounds before you come to the final, right? So it's just not one speech, and it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of money, it takes a lot of energy. And there are many times in my life where I've said, I don't want to do this year. Mm-hmm. But, the quote that I told you about, when you want to give up, remember why you started. And I often go back and think, why did I really start this? And I remember the aspiration, the dream I had, and why I really set out on this path, and that keeps me moving forward every year. Well, kept me moving forward every year.
And I think it's a great quote, because too many of us, we all face challenges, and if you start thinking about, well, why am I even doing this? Why am I working? Why am I going to school? Why am I even training for this competition? We once we understand why we started, then we know that we have to finish. And I think it's a very important quote.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm curious, when you prepare for your public speaking, do you have any particular blueprint or a formula that you use, first of all, to improve your skills that you're willing to share with us? And I think that we can really benefit from that.
Absolutely, right. And when you say you're a good public speaker, you're basically looking at 2 skills. Number 1 is how you structure your content. And number 3 is how you deliver your content. Now, if I was to give you some tips and techniques, or if I start with structuring, a lot of us, when we get an opportunity to speak, our first question is, what's my topic? That's the first question we ask. But it's a question that is often difficult to answer. And I'm sure you would have had this experience where you're scratching your head thinking for a topic. It doesn't come automatically. It's not easy. But instead of asking what's the topic, something you can ask is, what's my message? What's the message that I can give my audience? And generally, what I try to do is, before I figure out my topic, before I figure out my content, I ask myself, what's my message? What's my key message? And can I write my message in 10 words? If I can't write my message in 10 words, my audience won't understand my message. So that's where I actually start my speech. So it's the first thing that I follow when structuring a speech is write my message in 10 words. And then I figure out what's the content I want to put for this. And finally, I ask, okay, what's the title I want to put for my speech? So that's basically a basic formula that I follow when I'm structuring my speech. When I'm in speech delivery, something that a lot of people miss is the first 8 seconds. The first 8 seconds is the most important 8 seconds for a speaker, because the audience makes a judgment about the speaker in the first 8 seconds, and that's why you call it the first impression. The rest of the time, the audience is justifying that decision. So, for example, if a speaker comes on board and if the first impression is bad, the rest of the time he speaks, the audience is trying to validate why he's bad.
Right.
If the speaker is good, the rest of the time the audience is listening to the speaker, they're trying to see all the good points and validate the fact that he's a good speaker. So the first 8 seconds has to be a bang. From the time how you walk onto the stage, how you look at the audience confidently, smile, and start with the attention-grabbing opening that will knock the audience off their feet. And if you can ace these first 8 seconds, you can ace the rest of the speech. So those are the small 2 tips I'd like to give you.
No, this is just a very important tip that you just shared, because when I look at speeches, or I watch a lot of these TED Talks. Some of these people they don't do that. They come out and you don't really know what to expect. And you're saying you have to get that first impression, capture them, and then you open the door to your whatever you're going to say. And I'm sure that this is something that you practice heavily to get those 8 seconds perfect, right?
Well, it's more important if you are not a recognized speaker. Now, for example, if you have a great brand name behind you, and if you have, a fantastic, brand value and proposition, and everybody knows you, then speaking to audiences becomes much easier, right? But if you are just starting out in speaking, or you need to make a great first impression, it could be even to your boardroom, or it could be to a group of college kids. In the first 8 seconds, something that I've always seen is they don't give you the attention. Now, a lot of us, you and I, we would have had this experience where you go in front of a crowd and everybody's on their cell phone. Some people are taking calls and some people are talking to each other, and their attention is not on the speaker. So if you start off with that 8 seconds and you have that attention-grabbing opening, it can be a story, it can be a statistic, it can be a rhetorical question. If you have an attention-grabbing opening, you can get that attention of the audience for the rest of your speech.
Perfect. I think this is a great tips where people who are trying to get into this, trying to be better public speakers. Remember that the opening is the key. And Dananjaya, I wanted to ask you. I mean, the speech that you created to win the World Championship is very intriguing to me. It's called "I See Something." And I would like you to spend a few minutes to, first of all, tell me a bit about the speech. How did you think about it? And then let's talk about the strategy that you used to focus on getting and winning this thing.
So this speech is something which is very close to my heart, because I would be lying to myself if I said I achieved whatever the little success that I have today, I achieved it on my own. And this would be a complete lie. It's my personality, is that I wake up every day in the morning and I'm the first guy to say, look, I don't want to do this. I'm the first guy to say it. Mm-hmm. And you see in movies, right, where the hero never gives up and, he gets up in the morning, works hard. In real life, sometimes you also find heroes who are not like that. There are people who get up and say, look, I don't want to get out of bed today. And I was a person like that. But there were people in my life who saw something in me, something special, when I couldn't see that for myself. And what they did was they created opportunities and pushed me towards those opportunities. And when I wanted to run away, what they did is they took me and directed me in the right direction and told me to run this way. So in my life, I've had so many people that have directed me in the right direction that has helped me achieve what I have achieved today. So the speech, I See Something, is about the power of association, how you become the people you associate, how your success can be formed from the people that associate, and how when you associate people that have your best interest at heart, you will never go wrong. And that's why this speech is so special to me.
And to me, what was remarkable about it is the mix of the story, your life story that comes out in the speech, and also the fact that you use a lot of humor to weave into that story, which was just remarkable how you did it. And so that's why I'm curious to know about your strategy when you structured the speech based on the tips you told us before, and how eventually you managed to win this competition.
Okay, so let me talk about strategy in terms of how I approach it from a technical perspective and how I approach from a personality perspective. Okay, the first time I did this speech, I See Something, was for a Tedx speech. Okay, and that was a 20-minute keynote. So the first time I did it was 1 year ago for 20 minutes. And that was a very localized, contextual speech for Sri Lankan. But when I did that, I got an amazing response. And I instantly knew that if I could bring this 20-minute keynote to an international standard 5-minute speech, I could win the World Championship of Public Speaking. It took me 1 year to do that, to bring the 20 minutes down to 5 minutes. So the amount of effort that I would have spent to craft this 780 words that I have in my speech, it took a colossal amount of man hours, and writing and rewriting and cutting off and chopping off until I got 750 words. So my first thing is, there is no substitute for that amount of hard work and commitment. Well, that's like something that every world champion speaker would tell you. Now, looking at the strategy, one thing I wanted to do was I wanted the audience to remember my message. So when I crafted my message, I used my writing skills to craft it in a way that is easy to remember and easy to recall, right? And so that's the first thing that I wanted to do. So I could have easily had my message as, all of you have potential, but you need to find that potential within you. So that is also similarly the message that I gave in my World Championship, but no one would remember it, and it's very difficult to recall. So the first strategy that I used was I made sure my message has a rhyming effect. I see something in you, but I don't know what it is. And it's easy to remember, easy to recall. Secondly, I wanted to have a lot of humor. And the best way to bring in humor to your speech is through dialogue. So where you have a story and you have two characters, and one character says something and the other character responds. Boom. Instantly you get laughter. Dialogue is the best way to bring humor into a speech. So I wanted to have strategically placed dialogue throughout my speech that allowed me to bring in humor. But here's the trick. I connected both of them. So basically, my dialogue in the speech was actually my message. So not only did the audience internalize the message and the key phrase, but they were laughing at the same time. which connected the emotion to the message, which allowed them to remember it. That is the key strategy for the winning speech.
And this is just golden nuggets that you just shared. But to me, what struck me about the speech, and just to describe it to our audience, when you walked into the stage with your you had a flower in your jacket.
Yeah.
And you took the flower and
right.
you started ripping the parts, and you were talking about what you're doing about and this was something that to me was very different because nobody expected you to do it.
Yeah.
And so I think that was a surprise effect.
That's great. That's something that's good that you reminded me, and that's the use of props, right? And what it does is it adds a visual element to what I was saying. So it was easier for the audience to kind of visualize, my anecdote while I was using that rose. And what I was saying was all of us are like flowers. We are all beautiful. But life has a way of, plucking your petals and breaking you out. So every time I'm using that prop, it creates a visual image into the mind of the audience. And that's another technique that a lot of good speakers learn, yeah.
Right, which I think is a bit. It's a skill you have to develop because it's just hard to do a visual exercise and talk about it at the same time and make it perfectly, seemingly flow like you did.
Yeah,
definitely requires practice.
Yeah.
And so now you are the world champion of public speaking, and you've been doing this for 10 years or more. But I'm curious to know, you probably lost many times before you start winning. And I'm curious to know, do you think that you learned more from winning or from losing all these times and vice versa?
Yeah, that's straightforward. The answer is, losing. Losing is, in my career, is something that has been a hard teacher, but was able to teach me lessons that nobody else could teach. I've lost for 10 years straight. Before I won the World Championship of Public Speaking, it took me 10 years. And it's even harder when you come from a South Asian country because, English is not our first language. Where I come from, in my country, English is actually our third language. We've got 2 national languages ahead of English.
Right.
And, so it makes it infinitely more harder because you're speaking a language which is not your mother tongue. So that problem is it's something that I've had throughout the years that I was competing, and for a long time, right? And I thought that I need to speak like, an American. I need to speak like a Britisher. I needed to speak like, someone from the West in order to win this. And every time I got on stage, I was not myself. This year was the first year that I decided I'm going to be myself. I'm just going to talk to the audience the way I talk to people, in my day-to-day life. And I'm going to stop competing for the first time. So this year was the year when I said, I'm not going to compete. I'm stepping on stage to give a great message and just be myself. And that's the year I won the contest.
This is the year where people actually connected with you because they saw the real message that you're delivering as opposed to you trying to be somebody that you're not, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And like I said, I was really enchanted by this speech. It's really I wish anybody I shared it with, they really had good things to say about it, and everybody's learning something different from it. And I think for you it makes you probably feel good about it because you feel that your message is going through. Which leads me to what I want to ask you right now. You are a professional speaker today, and what really motivates you to continue doing it? What do you get from this, being a public speaker and traveling and teaching people how to do it?
That's a good question. Right? I think that's a very very important question. For me, the biggest motivator that I have in my life is that I'm able to share my knowledge with people who otherwise might not have access to it. I want to be, I have this philosophy that I don't want to change the world. I don't want to I don't want to save the world from anything. Or I just want to change one person at a time. If I could help one person every time I speak to maybe achieve his dream or his potential, that's good for me. Because I know the people in my life, if they did not do the same thing to me, I would not be where I am today. So I'm very grateful for the people who I've learned from. And my biggest driver is for me to do the same thing to my audience, just to teach, to share experiences, learn from them, and teach them also something that I may have to share. So it's a matter of reciprocation. What others did to me, now I'm in a position to give back into the world. So that's what really motivates me every day.
And you feel that every time you go out and you speak to audiences, you get the affection and the love back from people, that they see that you're giving your full self to them. So that kind of it's an inspiring effect.
It is, right? It is absolutely fantastic. And well, I mean, realistically, there are people who may not like, how I'm saying what I'm saying. Right. But for the people that really connect, and any motivational speaker, you got people that they like and they don't like. But the people that really come up to you and say, listen, Dan, I listened to your speech, I learned something from you, and I'm going to go home, I'm going to implement this, and I'm also going to go and teach my kid a couple of things that I learned today. And that's like the best thing that a speaker could hear. So for me, that's what I like. More than the praise that people give me and more than the love that people give me, what really motivates me is that they use what I've been able to teach them, go back home and then teach another person in turn, and so that they are able to develop themselves further.
Yeah, spreading the message. And Dananjaya, some people who listen to this may say, well, that's great, and he's very inspired, but I don't want to be doing speaking engagements, even though I'm a professional. I don't want to be out there. What do you think is the relevance that presentation communication skills, like somebody who is a speaker, can give somebody who doesn't intend to be a speaker? So I'm curious to know what are these skills that any of us can get.
Because public speaking, Jacob, is about improving your confidence. And
right.
If someone came and told me, Dananjaya, when I started Toastmasters, right? If someone came and told me, look, you're going to learn public speaking, even I would say, look, I don't really do speeches in my job, so I don't really need to learn public speaking. But how I was introduced to Toastmasters and public speaking was, this will help you increase your confidence. Now, what does that mean? When you increase your confidence, it improves your life tremendously. So you do not have to be like a master of public speaking, or you don't even need to be a speaker per se. But if you decide to venture into platforms like Toastmasters or your National Speakers Association or any other forum that focuses on developing your confidence through public speaking, you're killing two birds in one stone. Not only are you learning the skill, but you're also developing your confidence. So when you develop your confidence, it boils down to even your one-on-one relationships that you have. So you may not really be doing speeches to public, but the confidence you get from that, you have it during interpersonal communication. Like, for example, you're negotiating a sale. So, or maybe you're just trying to convince and persuade somebody, and that's a one-on-one situation. But the confidence you've got will affect that as well. So my advice is, it's totally fine to say, look, I'm never going to be a great speaker. That's fine. But what you can do is use a program and a platform in Toastmasters to really develop that confidence in you so that you can use it for other aspects of your life.
Very good advice. And Dananjaya, I think another thing that I hear, or even for me personally, when I started doing what I'm doing, is there is this element of fear and anxiety. When we even a smaller group, or of course, if it's a big group, it's
Sure.
even worse. But it's something that I
Sure.
hear often when we meet in groups and we talk about what we can do to improve our business, and people say, "Well, you got to go out there and speak." This fear when you come out of that on that stage, or on in the spotlight where somebody announces, and now he's gonna he's gonna tell us his speech, and then everybody's quiet and looking at you. How do you? There must be some advice for people. How do you overcome that fear and anxiety talking to people?
Okay. Okay.
This is important thing to
Sure.
share.
Sure. Well, Jacob, you know why that anxiety comes, right? Do you know why we are afraid? It's because it's not the fear of public speaking. It's just that we are afraid of being judged.
Mm-hmm.
Because I understand that as well. I mean, when I got on stage, I didn't have a fear of public speaking. I was just afraid of being judged by so many people about, how they look at me, whether they will clap, whether they will boo, whether they will throw tomatoes at me. It's because you're afraid, you're afraid to fail, you're afraid to be judged as someone who's unworthy. And that's something I understand, because I face that every day, because I speak in so many different places, and every time, even me, when I get on stage, I'm still scared. You never overcome that fear, right? But what you can do is learn how to manage it. You never overcome that fear, but what you can learn is you can learn how to manage it. Now, to learn how to manage it, it takes time. It's just like controlling your fear in any other form. For example, can you remember the first time you rode a bicycle?
Right.
Can you remember getting on the bicycle, taking off the two supports,
Yeah.
and actually riding it? You know how nervous you felt? Well, the more you rode the bicycle, the more confident you became, right?
Right.
And that's the same principle. That's the same principle here. You can never learn how to ride a bicycle by going to a seminar. You got to get on the bike and you got to ride it.
You have to do it.
And public speaking, yeah, exactly. You got to do it. And public speaking is the same thing. So how you learn to manage the fear is stage time. Getting on stage, doing it, going back, doing it, going back, doing it, and little by little, you increase that confidence. So there is no magic formula. There is no magic formula because you always have the fear. Even as a world champion at public speaking now, just next week I'm going to go to a country that I've never been to, and I'm going to talk to an audience that I've never talked to in my whole life, and there's going to be 3,000 people. And today, I've got butterflies in my stomach too.
Mm-hmm.
But I've learned how to manage it. I know how to manage it because I've done the stage time. So there are a couple of techniques that you can learn, but 80 to 70% of the time is just experience. So start small. What I always say is go to an audience that you're really comfortable with. Maybe you can do a speech, for example, to a couple of high school kids. You can do it to a preschool. You can do a small speech to your family. And start with audiences that you are really comfortable with and slowly expand on that audience. So that is something that will definitely help you reduce the nervousness as well.
Yeah, this is great advice because if you feel that the audience is embracing you, it's easier to start as opposed to going straight to the hard ones where they may criticize you or you feel that he criticized, and then you never want to go back there again. So I think it's great advice.
Absolutely.
Dananjaya, why don't you share with us a bit about your current projects? What do you do right now? What is the future holds for you? I'm curious.
Okay. Right. So professionally, what I do is I'm a human resource development consultant. So what I do is I work with big companies in Southeast Asia to help companies develop performance management systems and HR competency frameworks. So that's what I do in terms of a technical HR perspective, because that's what I specialize in. Then I'm also into training. I do training in a lot of communication, in presentations, in interpersonal communication, and in sales communication. So those are the three areas that I do focus in terms of my training. So after the World Championship, what has now happened is my speaking career has started to take off. So now I'm getting called for international conferences in different countries to just come, spread the love, spread the message, spread the enthusiasm and the encouragement. So now I will be slowly migrating onto my speaking platform, and will try to, make that into what I want to do with the next 20 years of my life. So my future plan is I want to be traveling all across Asia, especially to places where access to inspiration is not as easily gotten, but also travel to the West and greater parts of Europe to just speak as much as I can, and much as my voice would allow me to, and just spread a message that is something that will help everybody. Yeah.
Excellent. I'm very, very inspired by what you just said, Dananjaya, and I'm sure our listeners as well. And if anybody wants to find you on the web, what is the best place to find you?
Well, the best place to go is just go to I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I have my website on www.info@danjh.com, and I'm available on that was my website. Sorry, info@danjh.com was my was my email, and my website is www.danjh.com is my website. So you can get in touch with me through Facebook, through email, through my website, and through LinkedIn as well.
Perfect. And we'll put links in our show notes as well. So if anybody wants to get in touch with you and continue the conversation, they'll be able to do it. And Jaya, wanted to thank you for coming on the show. It was a true pleasure, and I look forward to staying connected with you. And to our listeners, thank you for listening to the show. Once again, if you have any questions, jacob@enchantinglawyer.com, or leave us comments on our blog. We'd love to hear from you. And until next time, thank you, and see you in the next episode.